A former student leader, analyst and commentator is calling on all unemployed and underemployed graduates to vote in the upcoming local government elections. Bongani Mahlangu is the former National Executive Committee member of the South African Union of Students. He joins us now. Mr. Mahlangu, thank you. And I guess you are referring to the tragedy of South Africa right now, that people can spend years in university at great cost to their families and then have no job. Simple.
Thank you guys for having me. So basically, yes, what we are seeing is that we have 9.3% of graduates being unemployed in the first quarter of this year. We have 11% of graduates, which is double digits, unemployed in the second quarter of this year. The average cost in production of one graduate is almost 450,000 rands, which is almost 500,000 rands. And these people are sitting at home. They are not doing anything. Municipalities in the country are falling apart. These people have the skills to assist their municipalities because each and every unemployed graduate, each and every underemployed graduate belongs to a ward, belongs to a municipality. They're sitting at home with those skills, and it's those skills that are required by these municipalities to function effectively, to function efficiently, to function optimally. But they are not being absorbed in these municipalities, which is saddening. So hence we are saying that graduates must not give anyone a blank check.
All right, so we'll talk about what you're calling on them to do. But firstly, you're not only speaking to the unemployed, you mentioned the word underemployed. Just remind us exactly what that means.
So thanks. So basically, an underemployment has components. So that is someone who is not fully employed. So basically, you are on an internship, learnership with no prospects of permanent absorption, someone who is underpaid, someone who is employed in something that does not require their skills. We have seen graduates, for instance, with this presidential employment program for youth. So you'll find a graduate with a master's in a STEM qualification as a screener, as someone who sanitizes, educator assistant. So that person is underemployed. And then there's the critical one, which is employment filtering. So basically, they would say that years ago, to be a bank teller in South Africa, you just required matric, but today it requires a bachelor's. The job description remains the same, remuneration remains the same, everything remains the same except the qualification to enter into that job. So what happens is that graduates are now crowding out those with lesser academic levels to do the same jobs that those with lesser academic education levels used to do maybe 5 to 10 years ago. So that those are components of underemployment, and unfortunately, Stats SA doesn't track underemployment, even though the International Labour Organization does track underemployment. And in order to properly analyze labour market deficiencies, you have to look at unemployment and underemployment. So you cannot only just look at the binary of employment and unemployment. Yeah. So that's what basically happens. And you would also realize that when it comes to unemployment and underemployment, that a graduate in it gets lesser as the age increases. That's because at first you are unemployed, you become desperate, and then you get a job as a screener. So out of desperation, you take the job with your master's, and obviously that was the job that requires someone with matric. You crowd that person out of the labor market, and then you take the job. So that is underemployment, unemployment, and employment filtering taking place right there. And as I said, there's not much being done to track it. So I don't know how government plans then to resolve it if they don't track it.
Yeah, and you're emphasizing that people get desperate, and that's why they take basically any job. Okay, so you're saying the unemployed and the underemployed must vote, but with conditions. What do you mean?
So basically what we have seen in South Africa, and this does not just apply to graduates, unemployed graduates or underemployed graduates, but to everyone. But in this case, in particular, we're talking about that group. So we have seen people giving blank checks. So you would vote for someone who's not actually articulating how your specific needs would be catered for. As I said earlier, you have an unemployed graduate with a qualification in accounting. That unemployed graduate comes from the province of the Northwest, for example, where according to the Auditor General, it says in the MFMA report of 2019-2020, 100% of financial records that come from that province are not of good quality. And then you have Free State, you have Limpopo. Those provinces have universities, have TVET colleges that produce skills or graduates that have financial skills, but they're not being absorbed. But then when people come to knock at your door, they're not giving you something, even in their manifestos, that says that our municipality will ensure that unemployed, underemployed graduates are absorbed into the functionary of the municipality in order to resolve it, to resolve the issues that are taking place there. So it's basically a blank check and no contextualization in the manifestos and the electioneering campaigns that speaks to unemployed graduates, whereas their skills are needed. Today in South Africa, we have nurses sitting at home, we have social workers sitting at home, but in our municipalities, there are health issues, there are drug issues, finances, researchers sitting at home. These people belong to us, they belong to municipalities. So if someone comes to you and they do not articulate something that speaks to the absorption of yourself in the municipality, then that's a blank check, and do not support with blank checks.
But Mr. Mahlangu, we've basically run out of time. So in 10 seconds, are any of the parties articulating this?
So basically, there's no party currently that's specifically
So that's the problem, you can't vote.
Exactly. You can't vote, or maybe because what we have seen also is that manifestos are now being specified or being contextualized to municipalities, being contextualized to sub-regions, being contextualized to wards. So there is still time for these parties to redeem themselves.
Okay.
And there's still time. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. Let's see if any of them do. I think you've explained what you're calling for very concisely. Bongani Mahlangu, former National Executive Committee member of the South African Union of Students.